Hi guys, my name's Connor. I'm a science fiction, political, and philosophy nerd, a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran, and a never-Trump Republican. I like breaking down news, commentary, political shenanigans from my perspective all day long for your entertainment. I basically take a lot of psychic damage for your entertainment. Today, I have Destiny on Piers Morgan talking about the Epstein files and also talking about the Texas floods. So if you're interested, please come along for the ride. It should be a blast.
Look, I want them to release everything, and I've called on that for a long time. I've called on that during the previous administration. The Biden administration did not release these materials. I've called on this administration to release these materials. I think Jeffrey Epstein was a sexual predator. I think he targeted and abused young girls. And all the evidence we have is there were a number of other men who participated in that. Yeah. And I want to know everyone who participated. I want to know everyone that went to Epstein's Island. And you know, the Attorney General has said that there are thousands of hours of videos, of explicit videos. And what she told me, I asked her a couple of months ago.
It is going to move into the panel real quick, but the reason why I like this intro so far, Ted Cruz is kind of like a sociopathic freak, lizard-brained politics weirdo. However, I do think that he believes his own baloney. And based off of this response, my actual presumption would be that Ted Cruz didn't participate in whatever orgiastic Washington, D.C. bullshit is. You know, could he be so Machiavellian that he does all the, you know, D.C. pedophile sex party shit, but he knows it's never going to come out, and so he's saying this on national TV? Maybe. But I find that very unlikely. I hope that this is actually a true analysis of the facts and also a call out of the current admin for not releasing the Epstein stuff. That's what I'm praying. That's what I'm hoping.
What the delay was, and what she told me then is she said the delay was that they're trying to go through those videos and make sure they're not releasing images of kids being sexually abused. And I understand that you want to protect the privacy of the victim. And so and she just said that takes time.
Timothy Douglas says, we should all grow up until I want to make fun of something that hurts left-leaning people. Yep, it's true. We can be both immature and mature at the same time. And what I mean by that is I actually would give infinite less shits about Stephen making these jokes if he was on the ground in Texas or if he was doing a fundraiser. I would actually not care. I wouldn't care at all. Because ultimately words are wind, but money talks, right? So if he took cash of his and put it towards like, we're going to get these people out of the mud and we're going to, you know, help rebuild a little bit. And we're going to make sure that they have food and water and we're going to subsidize their hotel stay and we're going to raise 50 grand. He could say the most fucked up, he could basically make the equivalent of Holocaust jokes about the dead girls. And if he raised 50 grand or 100 grand and donated that to the disaster relief, I would actually say, hey guys, he's a dumbass and he's making fucked up jokes, but he's actually helping. And by the way, Stephen is active. Like, you know, he does the canvassing events and shit. But if you're being a dick and you're not helping, then you're an asshole, right? And I don't think Stephen objects to being called an asshole, by the way. He's probably like, yep, I'm being an asshole.
I think they should release every adult who was culpable and responsible. I think the public should know, and I think they
agreed. And it's probably Bill Gates and Bill Clinton, which is why we're not finding out.
They should be criminally prosecuted.
I completely agree. Senator Cruz, great to have you on Uncensored for the first time. Don't leave us alone next time.
All right, terrific. Thanks.
And please send all our very best wishes. I'm here in London to everybody involved in this terrible tragedy. I love Texas and Texan people. And it's a really unspeakable tragedy. And our hearts go out to all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Well, I'm joined on the panel now by Natalie Winters, the White House correspondent for Steve Bannon's War Room, commentator.
Sorry, Shadow 2 Bravo said something funny. Connor, quote unquote, I'm human. Sir, you are a Marine. Yeah, I'm an abhuman.
And YouTube host Brian Tyler-Cohen, streamer and political commentator Destiny, and Ben Ferguson, the co-host of The Verdict with Ted Cruz. Well, let me start with you, Ben, given that you work with Senator Cruz a lot. It was great to have him make his Uncensored debut. And obviously we focused mainly on floods. But what he said at the end there was really interesting, I felt, about the Epstein files, because this is raging away. You know, the administration having got everybody very excited. You know, I had one of the administration on Uncensored, Alina had. But let's remind people what she told me literally like 2-3 months ago.
It is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
I don't see how it's not shocking that there were so many individuals that were hidden and kept secret and not been held accountable. Let's talk about the reverse. I believe in accountability. So you have to now go through your process. Now,
This is a fucking Trump lawyer, by the way. So, okay, so the admin is just sweeping because Bill Gates and because Bill Clinton are probably implicated by these meetings, and Bill Gates is a titan of industry, and because Bill Clinton is a titan of the Democratic Party, and there are probably titans of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party who all went to Epstein's Island, whether or not they abused kids or had sex with, you know, teenage prostitutes, who knows? But because so many powerful people are implicated, according to a Trump lawyer, that's why we're not allowed to find out now. That's amazing. I didn't even know that this clip went as deep as it did.
I won't say they're guilty until they go through their time in court.
Yup.
But again, now it's time for accountability. We have seen for so many years, Piers, in this country, many investigations, subpoenas, testimonies in Congress, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a general frustration with accountability. We take it halfway, we don't take it home. And I really believe that now with Cash and Pam, there will be accountability.
Now, Ben, that clip has had millions and millions of views this week, understandably, because there's a massive disconnect between what she told me there and what Pam Bondi was saying and what others were saying and what's actually materialized in the last 48 hours. You know, Senator Cruz there very firmly that he wants everything put out and he wants criminal action taken against those who broke the law. What's your view?
Couldn't agree more. Look, I think there's transparency the American people deserve.
Sorry, somebody said something very funny. I was saying if you said our bar was so good it blew his mind in reference to somebody getting shot in the head. Haircut Commander says you objectively have more testosterone if you say it at the funeral, though.
But not just the American people, most importantly, the victims. They deserve to not have this be covered up in any capacity or for people to just stop looking. I don't know if there's certain information that has disappeared or wasn't there that they thought was there, but at the end of the day, all that we do have needs to be put out there in a responsible way. You have to protect the victims. That is something that's extremely important. And so it's got to be done in an orderly way. But there are too many people that have talked about this on the record saying that there's a lot of stuff out there to then all of a sudden say, all right, well, maybe we don't have it. Maybe it's not there. Whatever the story is, give it to everyone the same way and make sure you protect those victims. But they deserve justice. And I don't think this is going to be the end of the story. I think there's far too many people that are asking the questions that you just mentioned, that the senator mentioned, that I'm mentioning.
Shaved Dog Butt says it's for a TV show. It isn't real. Really? Is it for a reality TV show? I'm literally going to Google that. Are you shitting me? Is that like a fake interview?
And this should be nonpartisan. This should be non-political. You have children that apparently were sex trafficked and abused in horrific ways. That has nothing to do with politics. It should come out whether the people that were the perpetrators of this were liberal or conservative or agnostic. It doesn't matter. You need to protect.
It absolutely has to do with politics, because the implication is the reason why it hasn't come out is that Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, was a triple agent for Russia, United Kingdom, and Israel. I think he's interred in Israel. He ran a Ponzi scheme and also may have honeypotted people. I didn't hear any accusations of honeypot. I more heard accusations of financial mismanagement. But effectively, he's buried in Israel. And I think intel operatives went to his funeral and said, nobody will ever know how much Robert Maxwell did for the state of Israel. And Ghislaine got with Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein had like a pretty starstruck skyrocket climb to power and wealth. And it seems like Jeffrey Epstein was hanging out with the dumbest member of the royal family. I forget his name. Hanging out with Bill Clinton, hanging out with Alan Dershowitz, hanging out with Bill Gates, hanging out with JF Gary Epi, believe it or not. Not hanging out with him, but he did fund JF Gary Epi, which I think is really funny. And then also hanging out with Donald Trump in the 80s and the 90s. So the question kind of becomes, did those people have sex with underage prostitutes, most of them teenagers who were recruited from local high schools and maybe a middle school or two by Ghislaine Maxwell? And did powerful people have sex with those masseurs? And then the masseurs were paid to stay silent, maybe, and then those people were compromised, and then Jeffrey Epstein used that as leverage for intel agencies. That's the question. And if you want to prove us wrong, feel free to prove us wrong. Say, no, Bill Gates went to the island dozens of times, but we have no video and no photos of him banging kids. Who is it? Bill Clinton went to the island dozens of times, but we have no video or photographic evidence of Bill Clinton banging, kids or adults that aren't his wife. Feel free to tell us who is not guilty based off of the available evidence. I don't need to see the available evidence, but if you have the FBI effectively saying there's no case, but you previously said there was, it fucking stinks. It stinks like crazy.
Protect the victims, and we need to make sure things like this never, ever, ever, ever happen again.
Right. Brian Tyler-Cohen, I mean, I do think it's a nonpartisan issue. Obviously, nothing is these days, but I do think that it is completely baffling to me, just as a journalist, that you have this extraordinary scandal that rages away for many years. The main perpetrator dies in prison and is believed to have taken his own life, but the only person that's actually been made criminally accountable and is now languishing in prison is Ghislaine Maxwell, his kind of madame figure, who's a woman. So none of the other men who are widely believed to have been involved in this, none of them have been made accountable. What's your view of this?
If we get copyright struck, let me know. And if the screen blacks out, then I will, if the screen blacks out, let me know, and I'll go ahead and move this to, as a matter of fact, I think I'm going to preemptively do it. This has happened before where they will black screen me. So I'm actually going to make this really small. So if you need to see their faces, go watch the original, but this should be fine for the breakdown.
Yeah, I mean, my view is that this is a con job by this administration. All of these people, Kash Patel, Alina Habba, Dan Bongino, Donald Trump, all of them came forward and said that this was a priority for them because they were stringing their supporters along. And then the moment they get into power, here we are in a situation where the whole thing is just closed and we have no further information on this. And yet, look, I think it would be fools to be surprised. I mean, this is a guy at Jeffrey Epstein who Trump himself palled around with for years. This is a guy who Epstein himself called his closest friend
kicked
for
him out of his club.
This is a guy who Jeffrey Epstein said was his closest friend for 10 years. This is a guy who Donald Trump appointed as the Secretary of Labor, Alex Acosta, who handed him a sweetheart deal, a non-prosecution agreement where he was out of prison 6 out of 7 days a week. So, look.
Yup.
Trump can say what he wants on the campaign trail in the lead up when he needs to get everybody's votes and pander to the base. But at the end of the day, he's the guy in charge. And suddenly the about face from everybody in his administration, the buck falls to one person. It's not Alina Habba or Carolyn Levitt or Dan Bongino or Kash Patel. It's Trump himself.
Right.
Not just that. The only thing this is the only thing that I think conservatives can cling to desperately is that Biden had 4 years to release it. Why didn't he? And I think the only answer to that is there are just as many Democrats who would be damaged by the release of the files as there are Republicans. That's the only thing that I can think of. Or it would compromise intel operations involving the CIA and Mossad, who were honeypotting powerful people to their own ends. So it's either going to hurt the intel agencies or it's going to hurt Democrats as bad as it's going to hurt Republicans. These are the only two reasons that I can think of that this information wouldn't come out. Senpadi says, what would you say the solution is, in your opinion, how we stop the tit for tat? Just don't be a piece of shit. I get that that's a local solution to a systemic problem, but you, Senpadi, and Haircut Commander, and Chris Smith, and Timothy Douglas, and all the people in my chat, you individually do not be a piece of shit. If you want to laugh at Destiny being a piece of shit, totally fine. Awesome. You know, I admitted there were aspects of the joke that I thought were fucking funny. There was shit that was funny. However, just don't do it yourself. Just don't be a total shitbag yourself in reference to being callous and cruel to people who died. Local solution, systemic problem. I know it's not enough, but that's the best I got.
I mean, Natalie, the interesting thing in terms of the timeline here is that when Elon Musk fell out pretty spectacularly and suddenly with Donald Trump.
Or Penguin brings up an interesting point. We stopped the tit for tat by giving Americans an external threat based. Let's make it space aliens and conquer Mars.
One of the things he posted on his X platform was, you know, bombshell. The biggest bombshell is that Trump's in the Epstein files, right? And that was only a few weeks ago. And since then, there seems to have been a concerted effort for this story to just go away. Now, these two things may be completely unconnected. There may be nothing.
Master of Darkness says, I'm wearing a Bass Pros Shop hat, for God's sake. I am listening plenty, and you're being a dick based on a disagreement. Yes, welcome to Twitch and YouTube politics. Just because you said that, I'll go ahead and apologize for being a dick. But let's just say I viciously disagree with your perspective and find it to be ass cancer. How about that? You can disagree with me and think that my perspective is ass cancer. I disagree with you, and I think that your perspective is ass cancer, and we'll leave it there. Sacred Snow says, when D is at 1 HP, where's the energy? Connor, when D is at Nebraska Steve, maybe take it about 10% off there, Squirrely Dan. No, yeah, that's right. That's right. Steven at 1 HP still mogs some of these people, and Steven at like 100 HP is like insufferable. You're right. He should be running at 72%. That is the perfect Steve.
More to it other than Trump obviously was seen around Epstein. They clearly were very friendly for a while. I think he used his plane several times. I don't think that's in dispute. But there does seem to be a weird timeline here of Elon Musk saying that publicly and everything getting shut down a few weeks later. Am I reading?
Yeah. Piotr Podsiadle says, great stream to listen to while I'm at work. While I don't agree with you on most things, I like your clarity on geopolitics. Thanks, King.
Too much into this?
Well, look, I think this is very quickly approaching. I mean, we've already passed debacle territory, but just outright grift. And that's probably not something that you would expect me to say, but this is just absolutely reprehensible. I think if you look at what really the MAGA base, the people who elected President Trump, what their sort of concerns have been these past few months is that the administration is not moving fast enough, right? They're not content with the press releases and the tweets. They want to see prison sentences and actual accountability for people that they believe committed crimes. Now we've hit the point where we're not even getting the press releases or the strongly worded letters. We're getting weird, undated, unnamed memos being released over holiday weekends to legacy media outlets, trying to bury it in Axios instead of working with all the new media outlets that the White House, pumped and talked so openly and heavily about being in and around the White House. I mean, this is a bedrock issue. I know, I agree, it's nonpartisan, it's non-political to want to get justice for the victims, but I also think that this is something that is both hyper-partisan and hyper-political, because what Jeffrey Epstein was doing, whether it's a foreign intel operation or domestic aside or joint operation, has direct ramifications and probably the policies that we've seen being rolled out, whether through blackmail indirectly or directly through a lot of the political leaders
True.
in this nation. I would just say, as someone who has been on shows,
If it's intel related, that's based off of a quote from, I think, Acosta, the prosecuting attorney, where part of the reason why Jeffrey Epstein caught a sweetheart deal in the 2000s was because he was working with intel agencies. So yeah, this could be like very conspiratorial, and of course I want additional evidence, but that's based off of a statement made. Like, as a matter of fact, let's just go ahead and look up who said it. Excuse me. Google. Acosta, Jeffrey Epstein intelligence agencies. How Alex Acosta explained his handling of the controversial blah, 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 blah. Is this an article? Intel. We believe that we proceeded appropriately based on the evidence and not just my opinion, but I have shared the affidavit based on the evidence. There was value to getting a guilty plea and have him register. I understand what the victims say, and I'm not here to say that I can stand in their shoes or address their concerns. I'm here to say we did what we did because we wanted to see Epstein go to jail. He needed to go to jail. I don't know where the Intel quote is, but this did pop up as the first link, so it might be in here. Intel. Acosta's strange denial that he knew Epstein was an intelligence asset. Again, you're going to have to do deeper research. I do think it was Acosta. Let's just see. Let's see if it's quick.
We started Ernesta because
5 seconds for a commercial.
The office with respect to that particular paragraph. One more question.
Richard Lardner from the Associated Press. Mr. Secretary, were you ever made aware at any point in your handling of this case if Mr. Epstein was an intelligence asset of some sort?
So there has been reporting to that effect, and let me say there's been reporting to a lot of effects in this case, not just now but over the years, and again, I would hesitate to take this reporting as fact.
Why don't you just say yes or no, bro?
This was a case that was brought by our office. It was brought based on the facts. And I look at that reporting and others. I can't address it directly because of our guidelines. But I can tell you that a lot of reporting is just going down rabbit holes. A few more questions.
Based off of that answer, I would suspect that they weren't able to corroborate that fact within the case. But again, I want to see more. Why did he get such a sweetheart deal? That's the main question.
Co-hosted with a lot of the people, the clips that we've played of people who have called out Jeffrey Epstein for years and made millions of dollars off of it. It is absolutely reprehensible, and it is a complete grift. And you have now, in their words, probably become the deep state. If you're going to run cover for this and you think that the MAGA audience is dumb enough to not, I don't know, be able to go back 2 months and see the comments you were making on Fox News, we need to get this right. I don't even know if I have faith in Pam Bondi anymore, but this is a really, really concerning moment for MAGA.
Yeah.
Sorry. Quathhelm. If the right won't punish those who have been vindictive monsters for the better part of a decade after having their brains broken by Obama, why should the left care whatsoever about their filter? So some fucking dickhead bully on the fucking playground is walking around beating the shit out of other kids. And instead of, I don't know, talking to the teacher / defending yourself, you're allowed to defend yourself. You can defend yourself and not engage in turnabout, right? You're like, why don't I walk around beating the shit out of everybody? Why don't I pick on innocent people unrelated to the situation? Why don't I make fun of dead people? What? Why? How is that helping you at all? It's not. You think it is because it feels emotionally good to get shot in for by hurting people who are hurting you. But it's not improving politics or social discourse or anything. Just feels good.
Yeah, I mean, Destiny, it is fascinating to see how a lot of the most diehard Trump supporters in the kind of podcast, YouTube, influencer world, they've turned pretty vengefully against him and the administration over this. What do you make of it?
So here's the reality. The reality is, I keep hearing people like Joe Rogan saying the conspiracy theorists ended up being right about everything. They weren't. They were wrong about basically every single thing. There was no massive election fraud. There were no mass deaths from the COVID vaccine. There is no evidence that it was manufactured in a laboratory. There is no evidence that Jeffrey Epstein was murdered by somebody. The reality is every single thing I said is true, and I will debate you on any platform.
The Wuhan Institute of Virology you're saying wasn't true. That's where you lose credibility.
You have no idea.
Hang on, Destiny, hang on.
That's just stupid.
Hang on, Destiny.
30 HP Destiny walks into a room, immediately pisses everyone off. Based.
Finish my point. Excuse me. Let me finish my point. The problem is that the problem is that you guys spent so much time spreading.
He did a fanatic move. Nice. He did the fanatic. He was like, the problem is based fanatic, living on through the repetition move. God.
Spreading these conspiracies that when you finally wound up, sir, I don't even know if you know what. Do you even believe that viruses and germs are real? I'm not actually sure. Please stop.
I do.
The problem is that conservatives spent all this time. Conservatives spent all this time.
You would understand
conservatives spent all. Well, if you want to bring me on your show, I'll talk about it anytime, anywhere. Okay. Conservatives spent all this time.
I don't insult my audience with stupid comments.
Well, hang on. Let me jump in. Let me just jump in on this point.
Excuse me. Can I wait? Hold on. Wait.
Destiny. Let me.
Wait.
Well, you made a series of statements there about.
And I'm almost going to make one sentence.
All right.
Conservatives spent all this time with all these conspiracies, and then as soon as they got into office and they no longer had a deep state to blame, all of a sudden there was no election fraud evidence. There was no evidence about Hunter Biden being conspiratorial, with Ukraine or Russia. There was no evidence of Epstein being murdered, and that's what's happened.
Okay.
They are now the deep state. They have every part of the government under control, and they have no evidence for any of their claims.
Here's the problem. You've made a series of statements there, alleging that all these things are pure conspiracy theories and there's no evidence for it. And yet it is widely now accepted that actually it is more likely than not that the coronavirus, COVID-19, was started in that lab. That is now widely accepted. That's not a conspiracy theory.
It's not. It is. It
began as a conspiracy theory.
I promise you, there is no scientific evidence. There is no compelling intelligence community evidence that is the case.
So you think, Destiny, to be clear,
away all the samples.
hang on. You've had your say. Let me have.
This is why panels suck, but I'm waiting for moderation to step in before I even make a point. As far as I can tell, he believes Epstein, she believes Epstein, he believes Epstein, some level of conspiracism, so do I. One of the most annoying things about Destiny, which is probably the correct thing to do, by the way, is he's saying, like, I'm not going to make assertions based off of evidence that I don't currently have. It constantly puts you in the strongest rhetorical position. So I think all he did is he attacked like conspiracism in general. That's all that I've been able to hear so far. But I do think that one of Stephen's strong suits is I will go into speculation. I will take that Acosta allegedly said that he was an Intel asset sometime a decade ago. He got a sweetheart deal. Bill Gates hung out with him. Trump hung out with him. Alan Dershowitz hung out with him. These are all like documented things that are out in the public. And then also Ghislaine Maxwell's dad is Robert Maxwell, who was an Intel asset for 3 different people. And there are people who have come out and said that Jeffrey Epstein doesn't know dick about finance. So how did he get these billions of dollars if he doesn't know dick about finance? And so I will take that cumulative pattern and I'll say, there's a strong probability that Jeffrey Epstein was working for Intel agencies, honeypotting powerful people, and then using that as blackmail, leverage, or intel in order to pass it on to probably CIA, probably Mossad. Whereas Stephen, unless he has ironclad proof, he won't make that assertion. And so as a result, while I feel like my situation is more probable, he has better evidence. It's one of Stephen's like strongest argumentative habits.
Let me finish my sentence. Here's the thing, Destiny. You think it's literally a conspiracy?
Gen X says if Destiny donates 100K, he can say whatever he wants. Let's tell him. Yeah, unironically, he could donate 5K. And I would say he effectively has the flood. He has the N-word pass when it comes to the Texas flood. He can say whatever horrific shit he wants, and all he has to do is pay $5,000 for the privilege, and I would view that as a fair trade.
Conspiracy theory.
Because you know what? He would do more than a lot of people who are moral frogging about his joke. So unironically, yes.
The COVID-19, which was originally said to have started in a wet market 1 mile from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, where it later transpired they were testing new coronaviruses. You think it is more likely it started with a bat in the wet market next door than it started in the lab where they're literally testing new coronaviruses? You think that's a mad conspiracy? Because I would say the mad conspiracy is that it's the bat a mile away.
I'm gonna go with the wet market that was 30 minutes away in a densely populated city where all of the first cases started.
It's less
Probably
than a
the
mile
market
away.
that came from there.
Sponsored by
It's
the
a thir-
Chinese
it's
Communist
30
Party?
it's
I'm just
30
curious.
minutes away. Chinese Communist Party. Sir, you are an absolute idiot. I can't believe
No,
you
are
say
they
that.
like? Is it like
guys
when you
like-
do your shows like brought
just
to
to
you
be
by
clear,
the Chinese
just to be
Communist
clear,
Party,
just to be
right?
clear, just to be
That's
clear,
some
that
rich
it's funny that you say
propaganda, bro.
it's funny that you say Communist Party, right? Just to be clear, the residents of Kerr County for the floods that we were just discussing rejected utilizing ARPA funds for years to put up. It's so funny. Ted Cruz talked about an emergency siren system. They didn't want to use money from the Biden administration because of all of these crazy conspiracies that you guys spread about things like COVID, because they thought
Absolutely
if they
not
accepted
true.
the money,
I know
the
about
transcripts
that,
are
but-
public. The
but this
transcripts
is
are
what you
public,
call-
sir.
Hey,
I'm sorry, hold on. Are
this
you
is
telling me?
what
Are you telling me they
call
didn't say that? Are you
moving
telling
for
me they
Wuhan
didn't say
'cause
that?
We're kicking your ass.
This guy is pissing me off because he keeps interrupting it when I'm trying to hear the line of argumentation. And by the way, I know I interrupt people sometime, but it's because I want to get an argument out, not because I don't want you to hear the opposition. This guy has consistently interrupted as soon as Steven started making a point, which basically tells me that he doesn't want Steven's point to get out.
And you made up something to try to go back and use kids that have died in a tragedy to cover the fact that you cannot defend your Wuhan point of view because it's made out of Chinese communist propaganda. I think everyone watching can see that now. And I think you realize you stepped in it and you said something that wasn't.
No. And then not just that, the CCP, like, if it's an accident, it's an accident. The implication from other conspiracy theorists is that it's a bioweapon designed by the Chinese and the Jews to be boomer remover for population control. That boomer remover, in case you did not hear me correctly. So that's the actual conspiracy theory, is that it was a bioweapon designed by the Chinese, intentionally released around there so they had some level of plausible deniability in order to kill old people, in order to force depopulation because of the carbon Green New Deal agenda. That's the actual conspiracy theory. So this feels weak as shit to me is what I'm saying.
True, and everyone that has a brain on this panel is calling you out for it because it was such a stupid thing to say. I'm sorry that happened to you, but you don't use kids dying in a
hey,
flood
you know what?
to
If
try
that's
to
the
cover for
sir,
your dumbass
oh
comment.
my God. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
If you wanna
by the way, I want to bring the others in. I want to bring the others in too.
Anywhere, I would
Hang on,
gladly
hang on.
argue
Don't
with you.
all
I'm just
shadow
saying,
once.
so everybody can see who's running from it, okay?
Don't all shadow once. Let me bring Brian back in here. See, this is the interesting thing, I think, Brian. I read what Joe Rogan put out about conspiracy theories. He was really saying, what he was saying was, don't just dismiss them all out of hand, was his real theme about this. Because a lot of things that are alleged to be conspiracy theories, and the COVID lab one is a classic example where that began
Thank you.
as being something that could get people cancelled if they even dared suggest it, and is now, the US CIA believes that a research-related origin in Wuhan in the lab is more likely than the theory it came from animals. So the CIA now believe that. So it's no longer a conspiracy theory. But Brian, I think it goes to a wider point, is that take the Epstein story, right? I don't know whether he took his life or was murdered or whatever. It seems that most people who've looked at this professionally believe he took his life. But there's this weird video with the missing minute and Pam Bondi's torturous explanation for what that may be about. There's also the undeniable fact that he surrounded himself with a myriad number of famous, rich, powerful people who would have a vested interest in shutting him up. That is indisputable. There are also all these rumors flying around, which, even Alan Dershowitz thought there may be some merit to this when I interviewed him on Monday, that he may have been some kind of Israeli Mossad agent of some sort. You put all this together.
And Alan Dershowitz is one of the people implicated. Fuck. Come on, man. Listen, I'm okay with being wrong. I am okay with being wrong. But what I would want is a statement from the FBI saying, we reviewed all of these tapes. A summary of the tapes is as follows. Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, unknown male, abused, blah, 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 blah. We tried to identify unknown male, but unknown male, we did facial recognition, we did, tattoo analysis, we did social media analysis, we did this, that, the other. We were unable to identify unknown male or unknown female who was participating in illicit sex acts. That's what I would want. I don't need the video. I need reports from the videos that summarize what's going on in them so we know what's actually in them and what steps they took in the investigation that they weren't able to turn up another person worthy of prosecution. And if they say, we went through all 10,000 hours and there was not an identifiable person that we can indict, then I would be like, we're moving on. But if they're not willing to give that summary, then it is shady as fuck. It's so shady. Shadow 2 Bravo for $10. Thank you, King. I agree, Connor. I was tired of shit posting online and I was just overly complaining. July 17th is my official campaign launch for the Idaho State House. So get off of X and run for something locally. Thank you, Shadow 2 Bravo. You are based, but I still hope you're on X so I can retweet you sometimes. Gen X says, who are the chick in the suit guy? No idea. Timothy Douglas says, do you have an example of him doing that? Fun fact, things I don't like are also non-facts. I think you guys are arguing about whether or not Destiny is bad faith. Anyways, I'm going to keep scrolling through chat and continue with the content. I parasocially love you. Please, we've had four donors so far today. We got Tagarung, True Zealot, Shadow 2 Bravo, and Old School. Thank you for your donations. And then quick shill time. Like the stream. Share it with your friends. Engage in chat. There's lots of really funny, interesting people down there. Comment on the VODs and watch the VODs. And then also super chats if you got them. And memberships. Somebody's telling me that memberships are down. I'll double check that with the back end people. Anyways, parasocial love, let's continue.
Together. And again, it's very easy to say, well, it's all a conspiracy theory. To say that that he did anything other than he took his life and nobody else was involved. There's no client list. Nobody else abused these girls. It's over. I don't think that's the conspiracy theory. The conspiracy that's going on right now, it seems to me, is a conspiracy of shutting this down, of silencing debate about it, wanting to move on, and for actually nobody other than Ghislaine Maxwell to be held accountable when it is. I mean, look, take Prince Andrew. Right, in my country, Prince Andrew paid Virginia Giuffre a reported $11 million, right?
Yup.
But claimed he never met her, right? But there's a photograph of him with his arm around her when she was 17, 18 in a London townhouse. Now, call me a conspiracy theorist, but you don't give $11 million to someone you've never met, right? I don't care who you are. So, again, a lot of the stuff swirling around here doesn't make a lot of sense. And I don't think it's good enough for people just to say it's all conspiracy theory. So shut up and move on. Your thoughts?
I would completely agree. And in fact, we saw yesterday when
Queltham says you can't cling to Biden not releasing the files when you have the power to do so, but won't. You elected him, no more pointing the finger. Yeah, I can point the fucking finger. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I think I didn't vote in 16 and I didn't vote in 20 because, well, I did vote. I just voted locally. I think I left the top of the ticket blank in 2020. So number one, you can't put Biden on me. Number two, I probably should have voted Biden. And I did vote for Kamala this most recent time. If Kamala won and the Epstein files didn't come out, you better gosh darn believe that you can still be critical of an admin that you elected. The one thing that I actually applaud about MAGA, which is very difficult to do, is that they are actually complaining about the Epstein files. That's the only thing that I respect about MAGA for the past 2 years, is the fact that they have the balls to break with their own cult and say, hey, yeah, this is messed up. Queltham, your logic sucks.
The White House was posed these questions, Trump freaked out and said, whoa, why are we still talking about this? Can't we talk about something? You've got Donald Trump, who has spent every waking minute of the past almost decade talking about the water pressure in his shower and toilet. That guy suddenly doesn't want to engage in a topic that he's spoken about before. We've heard him go on and on about immigrants being rapists and murderers every day. We've heard him go on and on for the better part of a decade about Hillary Clinton's crimes and the Biden crime family. This guy repeats himself to the ends of the earth. And yet on the issue of Epstein, which by the way was an issue that his campaign predicated so much of their focus on, that they garnered so much support from their audience based on, now he doesn't want to talk about it. So yeah, I mean, I guess the expression that would come to mind is a hit dog will holler.
Well, also, again, I'll repeat, this follows just literally whatever it was 3-4 weeks ago, Elon Musk in their big public spat suddenly posting, you know, the big bombshell is that Trump's in the Epstein file. So it might be
a move, by the way, that started a conversation about deporting Elon Musk, in case you were wondering whether there was any there. So yeah, I mean, clearly that he hit a mark by or he hit a nerve by saying stuff like that. But I mean, for this administration.
Oh, not just that. Yeah. With I forgot to even mention, Elon Musk said that Trump was in the Epstein files. That's why they're not coming out. And Donald Trump he's gotten cagey whenever media has asked him whether or not he's releasing the Epstein files. He's like, I don't know. There's there's a lot of people that might be associated with Jeffrey Epstein that are actually innocent, and I don't want them to, catch reputational damage. So, I don't know how much of that we're going to be able to release. He said that shit. And by the way, you could just release and say, Bill Gates went to meeting with Jeffrey Epstein. No illicit sexual activity observed during this video. You could say that. And guess what? Bill Gates would have to own the fact that he knew Jeffrey Epstein was an ephebophile, right? Let's not sully this Jeffrey's good name, right? Jeffrey was an ephebophile who was recruiting underage prostitutes, and he hung out with them anyways. Bill Gates is just going to have to take the optical L. Now, if there's a different video of Bill Gates engaging in illicit sex acts with an underage prostitute, the public should know that as well. $5 from Old School says, I wonder if S.A. Corey, the pen name of the authors of The Expanse, ever wonder why did we name it the Epstein Drive? It's funny. There was a bunch of guys named Epstein on Twitter who caught all sorts of shit for quote unquote being related to Jeffrey Epstein. And I think the Weinstein brothers, Brett and Eric, when the case first got released, I think they caught a bunch of shit as well, just because their names were similar. Yeah, it's gotta suck to be a Jewish guy with a 2-syllable name ending in Steen right now. Absolutely.
To try and brush it under the rug. And Natalie, I do agree with what you said about there being a lot of grifters. I mean, we've seen Dan Bongino and Kash Patel focus so much energy, so many resources, so much time on this exact issue, only for them to come out and say, oh, well, there's there's absolutely nothing here.
Yeah, and they put their tails between their legs while they were doing so.
But I would also caution, Natalie, to not put the onus, because I've been seeing this more and more on the right, to not put all of the
right paragraph teacher is ignoring the kid beating the shit out of other kids. That's the problem. How do you not see it? Because in this metaphor, we're all I guess in reality, we're all adults. So be a fucking adult and don't be part of what degenerates society. Kath Helm.
The responsibility on Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi is
Timothy Douglas says, so if you avoid doing it, the other side will keep doing it and keep winning. I almost said a very bad word. You won in 2020. Was Biden a hardcore progressive? You ran a disastrous campaign in 2024. But was Biden a fucking New York communist? Was he a socialist? Was he promising that the rivers would run, the streets would run red with the blood of capitalists? Was he simping for Hamas? Was any Democrat as extreme who actually won as a MAGA person? No. You win with moderates, you fucking idiots. So if you're pissing off moderates, you got an electoral problem. Stop pissing off moderates. It should be obvious, but for some reason it's not. And you know why? It's because you lost in 24. Well, guess what? Democrats ran a particularly disastrous 24 campaign. They kept a fucking senile guy in who was senile, and everybody knew he was senile, but they pretended that he wasn't. Then he had a disastrous debate, which led everybody to say, oh shit, the Democratic establishment is lying about Joe Biden's competency. They kept him in and waffled about it for another 60 days. And then they ran a California wine mom as the next president. Sorry, that was a dumb fucking political strategy. You should have said, hey, Joe, you're old as fuck 2 years into the presidency, and said, sorry, we're running somebody else. It was your time. You got the presidency. Take the dub, go home. And then 2 years into it, they should have said, hey, Kamala, we'll run you as the primary, but we're running a hyper moderate as your VP. And you better hyper moderate now. And you probably would have won. but you had 2019 Kamala progressive tapes beating the shit out of her every single day while she was running. And people were still acclimating to the fact that they were lying about Biden's competency for 2 fucking years. So don't say becoming extremist is the solution. You're wrong.
Appendage of Donald Trump. She's not calling the shots. Nobody in this administration is calling the shots. This entire cabinet, this entire White House exists to serve Donald Trump. They exist to basically be extensions of Trump himself, and no one will ever act independently of him. And so if accountability is really what you're looking for here, and I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and assume that this is all being done in good faith, then let's not delude ourselves into thinking that Pam Bondi is the final word or that the buck stops with her, when the buck always stops with Donald Trump.
I'm sure that there's merit to that. Let me come to you, Natalie, because Elon Musk has also suggested that Steve Bannon, that you work with, obviously, is in the Epstein files too. What can you say about that? I mean, what's the reaction to that, first of all?
Well, I'll always let Steve speak for himself, but I can guarantee you, Steve is certainly not in the Epstein files. Perhaps Elon needs to both be deported and sued for defamation. But look, I think, in a rare moment, I probably actually agree with Brian. I think that was why the Trump administration wanted to prioritize transparency, at least in their rhetoric, right? From the first days, they wanted the American people to be able to decide on all of this. And I think that sort of compounded with what they were trying to do, right, with the new media initiative, bringing in these other voices to try to, I think, go away from just having legacy media outlets dominate certain narratives or sort of setting the parameters for what stories are of interest to the American people. And I think when you talk about transparency, I don't know if the Chinese Communist Party or right now the Trump administration or whoever it may be, deep state, take your pick, is engaging in more of a cover-up when it comes to whether it's the Epstein files or the origins of COVID, respectively. I think that's a rather asinine point. But to link it all back to what you were saying, Piers, I think labeling all these things at the onset, rather, a conspiracy theory, compounding with, I think, a lot of sort of the censorship apparatus that we saw spring up under Joe Biden, you sort of get that same reaction to what people had when President Trump was sitting in his cabinet meeting and saying, why are people interested in this? Why are people looking at that? It just makes people double down. So even if you want to be pragmatic, respectfully, Destiny, saying that there's no evidence, I think you can agree that there is at least one piece of evidence that may intimate that COVID-19 developed in the Wuhan Institute of Virology under Shi Zhengli. I just think these draconian statements make people not more likely to sort of entertain the other side of the fence, but it makes people think that there actually are conspiracies going on to cover up information.
Yeah, I would agree. And Destiny, I'm going to take you off.
Hang on, Destiny, I'm going to ask you a question.
She said in 2020, Destiny, I'm going to ask you a question. So
this was under Biden? I'm pretty sure that was under Trump. So if you want to blame anybody for the censorship, it would have been Trump. I know.
Let me ask you a question, Destiny.
President there, but
Destiny, I want to ask you a question. So a woman called Kylie Jane Kramer posted on X. I've been trying to wrap.
Conservatism says, wait, you would accept them saying the thousands of hours of recorded men raping children, none of them are identifiable, and there's clearly no blackmail material here? No. But I would want the inventory at least, because I do think that there would be ultimately identifiable people. Because the implication now is that there's no identifiable people. That's the implication right now, is that there's zero, which I don't believe. So I would want them to document their investigative process, and then I would effectively want a congressional oversight committee to review the evidence to see whether or not they're lying. That's what I would want. No, I wouldn't just accept the inventory. The inventory would be need to be verified by an independent party. So yeah. So sorry if I didn't make that more clear.
Wrap my head around how the flooding in Texas became so devastating so quickly. Why not evacuate? Then I saw this.
I don't have a Twitch channel for Valor Media Network. I do have a Twitch channel on Tuesdays.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said the Guadalupe River rose 26 feet in just 46 minutes around 4 a.m. That doesn't even seem natural, to which you...
Oh, no. Fuck. Here we go. Here we go again.
You reposted this and you put your own words. I heard God killed those kids because they were using NordVPN, promo code Destiny, to get around the Texas.
You read the whole quote. He read the whole quote. Fuck. I know he had to, but that actually hurt me to hear out loud. Steven, what the fuck? Fuck. Wow. All right. All right. All right. This is why I took aspirin this morning. We'll survive. I took aspirin. We're okay. We're okay. We're okay. We're going to survive. Okay.
This porn ban. On reflection, do you think that was grotesquely tasteless thing to be posting?
Absolutely not. The hand wringing.
Hold on. Let me hear the last end of the question.
On reflection, do you think that was grotesquely tasteless thing to be posting?
Absolutely
I would be like, absolutely. But here's the point of my joke. That's what I would have said, but that's okay.
not. The hand wringing, the hand wringing here. Oh my God! Stop. There are. If you want to talk about dead children,
That's
then you
pretty
should
sick,
talk about
dude.
the residents of
Pretty
Kerr
sick.
County who rejected using ARPA funds to build the very siren system that Ted Cruz was over here virtue signaling about. Now that the kids are dead, last I checked, the siren system isn't bringing anybody back to life. Okay, the very same system that they could have built.
This is lizard brain sociopathy, and every normal person is fucking repulsed, even if what he's saying is true. Being like, the kids are fucking dead. We're not bringing them back to life. It's like, yeah, no shit. No shit, smartass. We're talking about, like, can we prevent this? You're just rubbing salt in the wounds. That's all he's doing. And by the way, he can rub salt in the wounds for a rhetorical point. I'm just saying, every normal person just felt a psychic repulsion.
For the better part of the last decade, they didn't want to touch those ARPA funds because they thought that if they did, Biden would go and steal their homes, which is the exact same lie that was told in North Carolina when people.
Vlad says, hi, Connor. Hi, chat. Finally got to use the law degree I got today. What a day. Congratulations, Vlad. Congratulations, sincerely.
Were rejecting FEMA funds
sick, man.
because they thought that if the government was giving them money for their houses, they'd
Piers,
steal
like,
it.
can I-
Let him finish the point. I want to hear why they rejected the ARPA funds. Holy shit, shut up.
If you want to talk about grotesque and ghoulish things that are being said, you
It's
should
what you
people
put
who are making
online. I agree with you.
decisions
It's
that
what
are
you run
actually
online. It is grotesque.
destroying
It's
their
disgusting.
counties.
But I mean, I guess that's what
just
you
get-
do. You
How long
talk
have
people
people like you? How long
midnight,
have people
2
like you
a.m.
told
with
us that
conspiracies.
if we spend less money in Ukraine, you guys are going to spend more money investing in things like infrastructure in the United States? Where is that money
Again,
going?
if you're
We just had
having to use
another.
Ukraine
We just had
to
another
defend your
massive
sick
debt increase.
marks
Another
about
massive
people
debt increase
dying,
for more
knock
tax
yourself
cuts
out.
for wealthy people. Congratulations!
Piers, let me
Thank you
jump in
so
here.
much.
All right,
How's
let me
the
get a
deficit-
Ben.
How's the
Let me get a
deficit doing?
Ben.
How's
All right,
that
let's-
deficit doing?
Don't talk
Wait, I
over
wanna
each
hear-
other.
I wanna hear how's our deficit doing? Is it going up or down? Is
Don't
it definitely
talk
going up
over
or
each
down?
other. But just to be clear, Destiny, you
There are
don't.
no answers. Just to be clear,
Destiny.
I'm gonna talk.
I'm not
Please stop
I'm not going to sit
talking.
here and argue about jokes
All
when
right.
these guys are spreading
It's not-
General So says she did hypermoderate, buddy. No shit. She had 2 months to hypermoderate, and they used her primary campaign in 2019 to beat the fuck out of her. You're not going to convince me otherwise. Okay? Okay? Biden should have dropped. You know what the problem is? Biden should have dropped out 2 years earlier. Kamala should have run a more consistent message for a prolonged period. And she should have had a fucking moderate. She should have had Pete Buttigieg, Mark Kelly, Josh Shapiro, or whoever she ended up actually having, who was charismatic enough. But the charismatic guy fucking floundered in his VP debate. And he should have been going for JD Vance's fucking throat. And instead, he played footsie. So yeah, there's mistakes all across the board in, like, what was it, like 90 days, 120 days to run the Kamala campaign. How many days were left when Kamala ran for president? Which took place, wait, the first contest 2 months prior to the Iowa caucuses. Let me see if I can phrase it better. How long was Kamala Harris's presidential campaign? I can't be the only person. She announced her 2024 campaign in July. And that was the 21st, by the way. So July's already gone. August, September, October, November. Presidential campaigns are like 1.5 to 2 years, and she ran a presidential campaign in 4 months. Do not piss on my leg and tell me it's raining.
You don't joke
that are
when
leading to the
children are
actual
dead, dude.
destruction of these. Oh, except you guys do when it happens in LA, when it's about the wildfires. You
I
guys
don't.
make jokes when
I'm not a
politicians are
sick,
getting
vile
killed
person
in
like you.
Minnesota.
Go
I'm
look
sure.
at my
Oh,
ex
just the
account.
rest of
I
your
don't
party
delete
is? Just the rest of your party
I
is?
don't delete
Don't talk
tweets. They're
over
for
each
real.
other, 'cause we
There's none of
can't
that
hear
there.
you.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Is the president of your party? That's actually a fair point.
But
So,
Destiny,
here,
just
let
to
me
be
say a couple
clear,
things here.
Destiny, just to be clear, you don't regret posting.
No, General So, listen, I love you. I love you. I've seen you in chat before, so I love you. When I say this, I'm going to be mean, but I love you. Do you know how many fucking moderates have dropped out of MAGA? Do you know how many people fucking hate MAGA? 35% of the Republican Party is not MAGA. 1/3 of the fucking country doesn't even vote, but they showed up in 2020. The rest are fucking Democrats. So if you get Democrats and you get disaffected and you get 35% of the Republican Party, you win. You ran a dog, not you personally. The Democrats ran a dog shit fucking campaign. Again, do not pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Quick shill time, because we're getting towards the end of the stream. Got like another hour and change left. Like the stream. Participate in chat. There are funny people there, even though they're pissing me off. Super chats if you got them. Memberships if you got them. Watch the VODs, comment on the VODs.
I heard God kill those kids because they were using
I'm not going to sit here and argue about jokes on Twitter while you allow the very same misinformation to spread on this program that leads to people not putting up siren systems, okay, because they think that Biden is going to go steal their homes.
That wasn't my question.
I think it is absolutely insane.
Wasn't my
I think
question.
it's insane that you want to go and hand-wring liberals over jokes that are not even half as crazy as some of the things these conservatives say.
Okay, but just to be clear, you don't regret doing it.
There's no tweet like that out there.
Just to be clear, Destiny,
absolutely not.
just to be clear, you don't regret posting it.
No, absolutely.
Okay,
not.
Ben Ferguson.
Piers, a couple things here that I think there's proper information that should get out there. This is an area that I go to often. It's an area that I've taken my kids dozens and dozens of times. It's a very small rural community. When it rains there's always flooding because there's a lot of rock in the ground and the water doesn't absorb in the ground. So you have flash floodings that happen very quickly. I've been there when this happens. This was a once in a lifetime 100-year flood. If you want to know about the funding for the system, it's an extremely small community, and the price tag for it
is Midas owned by Democrats? Yes.
Is
Valor is owned by Midas. Midas is owned by Democrats, but they've given a broad amount of content autonomy to Valor Media Network to the point that literally like 70% of the content is not even politics related.
very, very big compared to the tax base that they have in this small community. It is not because of the Matt Boone stuff this guy's talking about. That is not why the community decided 6 years ago to not do it, even though they wanted to. It was a cost issue. What's going to happen now is you're going to have state funds and federal funds, and that system will happen. But go back to this once in a lifetime flood that took place. No one could have prepared or thought this was going to happen. People bought homes on a river where there was constant flooding, where they're built high enough up that flooding has never gotten there before in the history of their lifetime. So this is a tragedy that took place. And by the way, this is personal because I know people who lost children. There are funerals that are taking place.
Just to be clear, you're saying that there are
talking about a funeral for a second?
He did finish, by the way. There was an obvious pause.
You're saying
Let him
he's
finish,
coming up like 15
Destiny.
times. So you're saying there are no citizens saying that they don't want to use the American Rescue Plan funds. They didn't want to use that money because they thought Biden would take their homes.
I'm going to go back
You're saying
to what I said.
that transcript doesn't exist?
But can
Yes,
you
I
let
think
Ben
about
finish,
that.
given
You're
he was
actual
talking about
cool.
the funerals
What is
of
this?
dead
What is this?
children?
I have friends whose kids
Please let
died.
him
You don't
finish
care.
what he was saying.
Doesn't care. As long as he admits he doesn't give a fuck about the dead kids. That's
Yeah,
okay.
you know
As long
what,
as he doesn't
Destiny?
care.
You don't give a
Admit it.
fuck about the dead
Admit it.
kids, do you?
Admit it. I do.
Because you
thought
it was funny. You thought it was.
Yeah, dude, no offense, but if I saw this guy does look like he's on the verge of crying, but also I think that if Steven said this shit in real life, he would get fucking pimp slapped, dude. This is internet shit. And by the way, let's admit it. Destiny made this content. I've been moral frogging for 5 or 6 hours. No, I've been moral frogging for 4 hours. So I've been moral frogging for 4 hours, but Steven has given me the gift of the thing to moral frog about. And Piers Morgan was given the gift of bringing Steven onto his channel in order to excoriate him, and gave us all the gift of Steven being so abrasive that he's making a state-level Texan staffer cry on live television, okay? Let's just admit it. Let's just admit it. This is peak content. It's peak content. However, if that guy was in the actual same room as Steven, and he says, hey, fuck you, man. I just got done going to some of the funerals because these people are in my community. And Steven says, fuck you. You don't give a shit about dead kids because you didn't take Biden money. Then I would half expect that guy to cry, half expect that guy to cock back and fucking slap the shit out of Steven. And by the way, if I was there, you know, if Steven starts getting his fucking head kicked in, I'll prevent him from getting killed, but I will not prevent him from getting slapped in the fucking face. Okay? If he says that shit to that dude's face and he gets slapped in the face, I'm gonna be like, you said some crazy shit to somebody in real life, bro. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? I would expect to get slapped like a motherfucker if I said that shit. 100%.
I'm not the one voting to take money away from
You
these
thought
things.
it was
I
funny
think
to
it's
go
fun-
on X and talk about,
Piers,
I heard God
excuse
killed
me,
those
excuse
kids
me,
because they
excuse
weren't
me.
using a
Jokes on
NordVPN
Jokes
to
on
get
Twitter
around the
don't kill
Texas
people.
porn ban.
From the
That is
party of
disgusting.
Kino content, if Steven gets slapped, I am not going to cry.
I thought comedy was
You're
legal
the one
again.
using dead
Jokes
children
on
in a
Twitter don't
grotesque
kill
manner.
people.
So let me just lay
Jokes
that down
on
for the
Twitter.
record.
This is the strongest point right here.
Just to be clear, let me lay it down as well. How many people did my joke kill?
No,
You're
it's just
sick, man.
disgustingly
Exactly.
tasteless.
You're a
Wait a minute.
sick man.
And then how many kids died because there's no siren system because people like this guy over here made up the lie that Biden was going to steal your homes if
I
you
never
accept the
made the lie
American
up,
Rescue
you
Plan.
asshole.
If you accept American Rescue Plan money. Exactly.
I never
That's
made
the
that
difference.
up.
The difference is
I
you're
would
wrong.
like to
The
hear
difference
Ben.
is
Whoops.
that-
I would
the
like to
difference is
hear
that-
Ben
Yeah, that's
finish the
exactly.
story he was telling us when he was talking about the funerals of dead children. So
I
let
go
him
back
finish
to
that,
Have to,
please.
what would it mean if we didn't have the funerals? Wouldn't that
Can
be
we-
better?
can
if
we
the people
mute him?
didn't die
Rather
in
than
the
you
first place?
talking about
Can
why
we
you
just
were right
mute
to
him?
crack a sick joke. Ben.
Okay. I go back to the point here. This flood did not ask if you were
10 minutes ago, I said she should have moderated her campaign and she should have run it for 2 years. You're right. 120 days is not enough. And her 2019 primary run was used against her to beat the shit out of her. Absolutely.
liberal or conservative, rich or poor, black or white, or anything else in between. People lost their lives, and many people lost their lives trying to save kids in an unprecedented flood. If we could go back, I'm sure this community would have said, we'll figure out a way to have the money. You're dealing with an area that has a lot of volunteer first responders and firefighters. Can I finish, please? Like maybe you'll learn something and not be such a tool.
You just lie.
You don't live there. You don't know. You've never been there. I've been there. I've talked to
hearings are
people.
available.
You
They
don't
had
know
the money.
anybody that
It was
died
sitting in
in
a
this
account.
flood. You're a
That's a weak line of argumentation. You don't know anybody who died in this flood. You don't live here. You don't know. And Steven's like, I read the fucking transcripts from the hearings.
should feel even worse about it.
That's
That
who
you should feel
are.
like an
I
even
would
bigger
like to
piece of
finish my
shit.
point, Piers.
Finish it, Ben.
Thank you. There are people that died in this flood helping try to save the lives of others. There are elderly that died. I know people that lost children in this flood. They would love to go back and have a different warning system. By the way, we don't know if the warning system would have changed anything at all. The warnings came out early. Unfortunately, there's spotty cell phone there. Everyone's talking
Yeah, that's why they were talking about installing a siren system within the location. That's actually what they were talking about. So yes, a siren system that prompts evacuation would have helped.
About this. I'm sure there's people in the community that wish they would have maybe done something different in the past. Hindsight's 2020. But to say that the community decided not to do this because of some insane theory you've come up with, which is not true or based in fact. It was based on a small rural community with not a lot of tax base and a very expensive price tag for something. And for you to sit here and to somehow decide that this is a place to say something so sick. I'm assuming you don't have kids. I have 6-year-old and 8-year-old kids. If you talk to parents that are planning their child's funerals are happening tomorrow and the next day here in Houston.
Yeah, you get the shit fucking rocked. You get your shit rocked for sure.
I think you would have a little bit of a soul and a heart for them, but instead.
Probably not. Let's be real. Steven's the same person everywhere he goes. It's you either think it's funny or you don't.
You're out here putting this crap out there, and it's really sad. I hope you get help.
Let me bring in Brian. Brian, I want to talk just about a wider point connected to what Destiny posted, for which he shows no regret at all, which is entirely his.
Rick Montana says, I suppose that was the idea with embracing Liz Cheney, whether that picked up more than they lost with far lefties or how salvageable those types were. Okay. Yeah, Rick Montana, but that was counterproductive because no Republicans like fucking Liz Cheney. She's Dick Cheney's fucking daughter. Bush was responsible for the war in Iraq, but the truth is that fucking Dick Cheney was the architect of the war in Iraq. Playing footsie with Liz Cheney was fucking crazy. Even neocons probably don't like Liz Cheney, and Dick Cheney is the best neocon of the past 100 years. But he was a vampire. He was Darth Vader. He predated on the American taxpayer in order to do a bloody regime change war in a shithole country that half of America couldn't even find on a map. Liz Cheney was the exact wrong person to warm up to. The person that she should have gone after is Adam Kinzinger. That's who she should have gone after. Crazy. I swear to God, DC, if DC didn't have bad optics, they would have no optics at all.
His choice, but I can say my feelings, which I have. You know, a former appointee to a Houston city board said that Camp Mystic, where most of these poor young girls were at the time, was white only, conservative and Christian, said Sade Perkins, a former member of the Houston.
Yeah, she was a fucking massive piece of shit.
Food Insecurity Board. Said in a TikTok video, so take a look.
I know I'm probably going to get canceled for this, but Camp Mystic is a whites only girls
This lady deserves to get slapped as well, by the way.
Christian camp. They don't even have a token Asian. They don't have a token black person. If this were a group of Hispanic girls out there, this would not be getting this type of coverage that they're getting. No one would give a and all these white people, the parents of these little girls, would be saying things like they need to be deported.
Now, A, I think that's completely untrue, what she said. B, it's completely disgusting to say that in the aftermath of this when these poor girls, many of them are still missing, presumed dead. But then there's a pediatrician called Dr. Christina B. Probst, who's been fired after posting on social media. She's a pediatrician, this woman. May all visitors, children, non-MAGA voters, and pets be safe and dry. Kerr County MAGA voted to get FEMA. They deny climate change. May they get what they voted for. Bless their hearts. And my question, Brian, putting that together with what Destiny posted, which again, for the record, I thought was disgusting, Destiny, I've told you. You can defend it as much as you like, but it was just a sick, awful thing to post. And if you had any humanity about you, you would delete it. But that's...
Listen, let's just say a quick statement of gratitude. Thank you, Stephen, for saying something so fucking repulsive on social media that you gave us content for today. Thank you, Stephen. You're also a fucking asshole. Brandon Zero says, you know what the funniest thing about this panel is the comments in this video in r/Destiny. They grabbed a lot of them and it seems they were Team Destiny. Lol. That's crazy, crazy, crazy. Let's take a look. I'm sure Ben will have a discussion with Destiny on the COVID stuff. He won't be a spineless coward, right? Ooh. Wait, why does Destiny have to wait to let that dude finish his sentence when the guy has literally interrupted Destiny every time? I'm here for Destiny to be unhinged as fuck, and I wasn't disappointed. Ben interrupting Destiny every time he gets past one sentence is okay, but if Destiny interrupts Ben, Piers immediately jumps on Destiny. Piers licking his lips anytime Destiny makes a messed up, edgy tweet. Conservatives during California fires. It was DEI and liberals. Conservatives during Texas flooding. We need to understand what happened to fully contextualize the situation. How is a tasteless joke on Twitter worse than actually denying funding to the very thing that could have saved lives? What a ludicrous perspective. How many kids died because of my joke? Nebraska Steve was cooking. Listen. Half of these people are fucking DGG, but it is funny to me that they're top comments with tons of likes and tons of engagement. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's all DGG. Listen, dead kids, messed up, bad optics, Stephen bad, okay? It's bad. What do you want me to say? But I think it's so funny. It's so funny. All the comments actually understand the point being made. Piers Morgan has been taken over by DGG. That is crazy.
Entirely your decision. But Brian, I've seen this on the other side too. I've seen this during the Biden administration when terrible things happen, that there's a race for people to get political, to play a race card or play this card or play that card, or to show a shocking inhumanity. And it's the very worst of society when that happens. What do we do about this? I think it's fueled by social media. People wouldn't be able to get the audience for this kind of thing without TikTok, without Facebook, without X and so on. But it's a sick thing that this goes on when these terrible tragedies happen.
Look, I obviously can't speak for what
Kevin Crook says, mad about a joke, but you're not mad about conspiracy rotted brains that killed kids because of Biden. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm a pretty harsh critic of the Trump administration and a pretty harsh critic of MAGA in general. So I don't know if you're talking about me or talking in general.
But some random person on
he's
the
never
internet
been
tweeted about Camp Mystic. All I can say is look, I try to have some sense of the fact that there are as many Republicans in California as there are in Texas, and there are as many Democrats in Texas as there are in major big blue bastions. And so I try to focus on that and recognize that a lot of these people are a lot of these people are fighting against the same system that I would be fighting against, and I wouldn't obviously not attack folks in Texas, but I would point out that Ben said that these storms aren't partisan, and that we have to try. I can't remember what Ben said, but the reality is that while the wildfires were raging in California, Ben and Ted had a podcast where they just attacked where they attacked Governor Newsom and Karen Bass, and that was while the fires were still raging. And so
yes, and Paul Pelosi was attacked with a hammer, and that Democratic state lawmaker, I think 2 Democratic state lawmakers in whatever the state that the new VP was going to be from, Kamala's running mate, Tim Walz, whatever state he's from, some of their state legislatures got murdered. Yes, the right wing has fucked up rhetoric and violence associated with it, 100%. Yes.
Spare us the grandstanding and the virtue signaling about how this stuff doesn't get partisan. This was here's Ted Cruz's tweet. Right now, everyone is horrified watching the LA wildfires. In today's episode of Verdict, we break down the catastrophic policy decisions made by Gavin Newsom and LA Mayor Karen Bass. While the wildfires were still raging in Los Angeles, while I was standing.
Okay, but the question is, are these things descriptively true? Because Stephen is using a joke about dead kids in order to draw attention to MAGA hypocrisy and the policy failures of gutting social institutions. And Ted Cruz is saying, oh, what a disaster. Let's talk about policy. I don't think these are the same things. And actually, if anything, I view this as Democrats using Stephen's kind of rhetoric. They're saying simultaneously, like, oh, well, Stephen's rhetoric is acceptable because this is the rhetoric that was said. The rhetoric that they're saying is nowhere near as egregious as what Stephen said. And also on top of that, If it's descriptively true that there's policy failures, I don't give a shit if it's a Democrat and I don't give a shit if it's a Republican. Let's fix the policy failures if they're descriptively true. Ah, son of a bitch. Being focused on the truth is so annoying.
On my roof in LA, spraying down my house with a hose to make sure that my house wouldn't set on fire when the fire was down the street within 1 mile of my house.
Did you listen to the show?
And so Ted Cruz decided to come out and make make his entire episode, which, by the way, there is not.
So I'll tell you what we said because I was on that show.
Excuse me, let him finish. You cried so much about people that heard him. Let him finish.
I know. Ben is like arguing for destiny.
You said we did a show. You're putting words in our mouth of something we didn't say.
I read the tweet.
True.
Verbatim. That's what I did.
Did you listen to the show? No,
I actually. So I'll tell you what we did. Did you watch the Lifetime movie? Did you see the documentary?
What we did was we talked about the decisions that were made. There's not a situation where Ted.
Sean Kaplan for $10. Thank you for the donation, King. Says, further back, you said that Destiny takes a better Epstein position due to deductive reasoning. I think your inductive reasoning, all signs point to, is equally, if not more valid. Well, Sean, I mean, I appreciate your donation and I appreciate your comment. I just think that deductive reasoning is a stronger place to fight from. Because if Steven says, well, do you have any video footage of him being killed? I'm going to say no. If he says, do you have any CIA or Mossad sources saying that Jeffrey Epstein is an intel asset? No. Do you like he could go down a long list of gaps in the evidence that I'm using to arrive at my position and then say, you don't have sufficient evidence in order to make the statements that you're making. I'm still comfortable making them, but I'm just saying from a debate strategy perspective, I think that's stronger ground to fight from. Thank you for the donation, by the way. Quick shill time. We hit like 150, 160 today. I know it's Destiny drama and it's spicy drama as well, so that's inflating numbers a little bit. But we were at 200 on Counterpoints the other day, which is great. Considering I'm having content spread between two channels, this crossover is fantastic. So like the stream, engage with chat, comment on the VODs on the Counterpoints channel, donate super chats if you got them, donate memberships if you see the button. I parasocially love you, even though you're pissing me off.
Well, let Ben say what he thinks he said. Let's listen to Ben.
I'll redo the show in a very quick form. What we talked about were the decisions that were made with underbrush not being cleared out and the massive warnings that were coming. We also talked about what the fire chief said about those warnings. We talked about the lack of water pressure. We talked about.
Sorry, real quick. Michael M says, is there anyone associated with Midas Touch that you want to collab with? Adam Mockler. I think Adam Mockler is a cool dude. We're actually in each other's DMs. He's a cool guy.
Then cleaning up some of the holding tanks. We talked about also the fact that there were certain things that were done to save fish over having the ability to fight these types of fires and everything that went into it. We talked about the decisions that were made that then made for a poor response that made you have to be on your roof, as you described it, spraying down because there wasn't adequate decisions that were made with those winds that came through with the underbrush.
You think the reason that I was on my roof was because while the Santa Ana winds were ripping through LA at 100 miles per hour and 50,000 acres of LA were burning, that some bogus fucking story about the smelt, about Delta smelt is why LA was burning? You're a joke, bro. You have no idea what you were talking about. You have no idea what you're talking about.
And by the way, I'm sorry, I'm going to side with, okay, Republicans would not fix the problem. Hear me, listen to me. Republicans would not fix this problem, okay? If anything, their fiscal conservative bullshit would make the problem worse. However, the Democrats, being in strong positions of power in California for decades, and not building desalination plants alongside the Pacific Ocean pisses me off to no end. California is like, what is the percentage of California's GDP? I think it's one of the largest. I think if it's like top 50 GDPs in the world. California GDP compared to countries. If California were a country, its economy would be the fourth largest in the world. California's GDP at $4.1 trillion surpasses that of Japan, making it the state that trails only the United States, China, and Germany in terms of economic output. That's fucking crazy. And the fact that they've been like, we got water problems, we got water problems, we got water problems, we got water problems. And it's like, bitch, You spend trillions of dollars. Well, not trillions. You spend hundreds of billions of dollars on state infrastructure every single gosh darn year. And you are sitting next to endless ocean. And you don't think it's worth a few $billion in order to create your own safe, secure, abundant water supply? What's your problem? I would turn California into a verdant, sprinkler-filled paradise. And yet Californians refuse. Pisses me off to no end. Anyways.
I'm quoting the Piers.
Oh, sorry, real quick. I did get a super chat. Vlad Darius Serban gives 50 RON. I don't know what currency that is, but thank you for the donation, King. W Stream. Thank you for hanging out. I appreciate you.
When your government in California.
There is no amount of water pressure in the world through these hydrants that are going to be able to put out 50,000 acres of fire. Yes, you did. You're talking about smelt, and you're talking about no water pressure.
I didn't say that the
Short Stack Goblin says, Connor, you call Tiny a sociopath, but the reality is in a world full of destinies, we have less child funerals to be toxic at. Who is sociopathic then? That's not the evaluation of what a sociopath is. Let's look at it. Disregard for social norms or laws, Stephen. Lack of empathy or remorse, no offense, Stephen. Impulsivity and aggressiveness, Stephen. Deceitfulness or manipulation, I'm not going to say that. I think Stephen is honest a healthy chunk of the time. However, there is a track record of when he wants to get his way and the world is preventing him from getting him what he wants. He can play a few games. Irresponsibility, failing to meet obligations such as work or financial stuff. I would actually say that's not Stephen at all. Stephen actually spends a disproportionate amount of time being a workaholic. And then also, we have the definition over here. Non-criminal sociopaths are Machiavellian. I don't think Stephen is purely Machiavellian, but I think he can be Machiavellian sometimes. He's narcissistic. This is me calling the kettle black, right? I'm narcissistic. I'm self-obsessed, right? But let's just say it. Creators are self-obsessed. Reputation motivated. Stephen, I would say he's at least partially reputation motivated. Psychopathic, meaning free of empathy. And then they also mentioned predator/parasite. I think that Stephen, people argue about sympathy versus empathy. I think Stephen, the way that I use it is that empathy, it might be reversed, but just listen to the definitions I say. I use empathy to describe the fact that you can project you being in somebody else's shoes, and then you can understand their position. I actually think Stephen is quite astute and is capable of empathy in that regard. Sympathy, the way that I use it, I understand people argue about definitions. The way that I use it is feeling the vicarious pain of others. When I think about the drowned kids, I get vicarious pain. When I think about the African women watching their kids die of preventable disease, I get vicarious pain. When I think about Ukrainians unnecessarily getting killed because of the Trump admin, I get vicarious pain. I do not think Stephen experiences vicarious pain. And if he does, he doesn't reflect that in his rhetoric. So, no. Stephen could create heaven on earth through astute technical prescriptions, and he could still be sociopathic. So no, being sociopathic has nothing to do with competency.
But if you turn on every hydrant, you know this. You lose water pressure. That's not what I said, by the way.
Let me grant you the larger point, though, and I think the point that you're trying to make, I'll grant you this, even though you don't deserve it, and you're just going to spew a bunch of bullshit about smelt and water pressure.
Okay, brother.
But let me grant you the larger point and say that there are still things that people could do, and I'm not here to argue that California did a perfect job or does a perfect job with regard to how they manage.
Okay, but this can also be said of Texas, you smug prick.
All of this stuff.
Gen X says, hey, what did you use your degree for today? Did you mean you got a new job? Whoever said that they got their degree. I think it might have been Vlad, but if it was somebody else, my apologies. Whoever said they used their law degree today. Ben Ted says, sup. What's up? Back to you, brother.
But to that point, then, do you think it's maybe a little stupid that Trump would fire 10% of NOAA's workforce, which is about 1,300 staffers and researchers? Do you think it's a good idea, then, that Trump called for reducing NOAA's workforce by a further 17%, which would be another 2,000 staffers and researchers? Do you think it's a good idea that Trump slashed 20% of FEMA's workforce?
Yeah,
Do you think it's a smart idea to phase out FEMA completely? Do you think it's a smart idea that 25% of NWS's...
LB, that's sociopath shit. What did you say that was descriptively wrong? It is a camp for white Christians, Heritage Foundation types. Number one, they probably would have liked a black girl or let a black girl in. They probably just don't know any black people. And then number two, the implication is like, oh, well, the media cares more about this because it's white girls. That could be fucking true. But then she also went on to say some vile fucking shit on her Twitter where she's like, yeah, fuck these Christian bitches. You know, they fucking deserve it. I think she called them "See you next Tuesdays." I know for a fact that there was a city councilman who said like little "see you next Tuesdays" about the girls that died. And again, the same way that I said, if Steven was saying the wild shit that he was saying in person and somebody who was personally affected by it slapped them in the face, if somebody slapped that woman in the face for calling dead kids "see you next Tuesdays," I would have no problems. No problems with that.
Stations lack a meteorologist. All of this stuff is
so let's go back to the basics here. If you're asking about the size of government and the president making a decision to reduce the size of government when it makes sense, I have no issue with that. By the way, the staffing and the lies that were put out by many on the left and the media was that there was understaffing when it came to the warnings that were coming out from.
Come on, Destiny, I believe in you.
From the National Weather Service. That was a lie. They were staffed above normal staffing levels. They held people over the day before and the night of the storm in Texas. They had double the staff on staff when the storms were hitting. There's a timeline of all the texts that were going out and the warnings that were going out. And so you're acting as if Donald Trump caused a problem with the flood and the response to it in the warning system, which is a lie. When you have double the staff, which is the protocol, by the way, under Obama, under Biden, and under George Bush. So this is nonpartisan, and everyone showed up for work, and people were held over. You're now just trying to score political points on the lives of dead children for political reasons.
Okay, let me ask.
Yeah, this is raw hypocrisy. Yep. If you're dunking on the Palisades fire, which, by the way, 12 people did die in the Palisades fire, while it is a less deadly event, yeah, then I think people can dunk on you 100%. Turnabout is fair play descriptively.
Hang on. Let me bring in Natalie because she's been waiting patiently. Natalie, when I read out what Destiny posted there, what was your feeling about that?
Well, I think that's probably the textbook definition of what it means to be a grifter, trying to profit off of dead children by pumping NordVPN and your promo code. It's
Fuck. NordVPN marketing team is going to commit suicide. You know what? That's on Steven, man. If the NordVPN fucking guy commits suicide, that's on fucking Steven, okay? Steven's laughing, and if you don't understand why I'm laughing, Steven doesn't have a financial relationship with NordVPN. He plugged them with a fake promo code as a part of the joke. And Steven is also not saying things he doesn't believe. He's being hyperbolic and or joking about some stupid shit. It's a dumb fucking tweet. You guys can think it's funny. I think the NordVPN aspect is funny. I think the rest of it is repulsive. I think normies are going to be repulsed by it. And I think it's bad optics and bad tactics. But hey, we're talking about it. So I guess we can't be hypocrites. We have to thank Steven for the content. Christ almighty.
Comprehensible. I'm
Just to be
pretty
clear,
sure
that's not my
you're an
promo code, and
atheist.
that's
You
not
don't
the
believe
definition
in
of a
God.
grifter.
You certainly
Okay,
don't believe in traditional marriage. So
What?
I would expect nothing less that you would double down and defend it. Blows my mind. I mean, I agree comedy's important, but I don't think, no offense, maybe shouldn't be a stand-up comedian if you want to start your career by posting about dead children. It's
Agreed. Be the next Anthony Jeselnik.
Really not all that funny. And it really wasn't even a joke. You were trying to profit off of it. So I think that's sort of a compounding evilness to what you did.
What do we do, Natalie?
So real quick, for compounding evilness, just so I could read this because it's entered into the record. Okay. I'm just curious if Ben wants to say, is this quote fake? Okay. So there's hundreds of these quotes. All right. At a county meeting, okay, where the citizens are giving feedback on whether or not they should use the American Rescue Plan funds. All right.
Isn't desalinization expensive? Yes. Isn't California the 4th richest country on the planet and it's not even a country? Yes.
Citizen Mr. R says there's not just a lack of transparency, but the Biden administration is pulling the wool over our eyes. If we see what's actually written, we make a clear decision. This is wrong. Texas has been going in the right direction. I moved from Washington State a year ago. Washington is just falling lockstep with whatever this admin wants to do, and we're watching with clarity the damage. As far as COVID and the recovery money, the majority of the damage has been caused by the government. We're doing well. I'm a retired firefighter. EMS, I love law enforcement.
So
do no harm is going by the way. So let me finish one more sentence. Do no harm is going by the wayside from. We're all familiar with that, and it's heartfelt, but it's going by the wayside for now. What would be money that would go against everything that we believe? Whatever good is in it, I don't want it. Are you telling me that comment and the hundreds of others like it are fake? Can you give me a yes or no before you ramble about whatever irrelevant stuff is? Are those comments fake?
I'm going to go back to what I want to say. You said what you said. I'm going to say it.
Answer.
Number one,
yeah, this is why you debate kids on college
I'm
campuses,
answering
right?
the damn question, dude. Like, just chill for
Then how about you give a yes or no first?
a second. Drink whatever hemp juice or that is. Okay.
Yeah, keep going.
All right. So number one, that's one person. Number two,
Desalinization isn't some tech that's without massive problems. What? Boiling water so it doesn't have salt in it, or using what's the problems with desalinization? You create brine. Problems with desalinization. I'm sorry. This is the most brain dead shit ever, is people bitching about desalinization. Desalination plants, while providing a crucial source of fresh water, face several significant challenges primarily related to high energy consumption. Who gives a shit? You're the 4th biggest economy on the planet. Environmental impacts. Who gives a shit? You're the 4th biggest economy on the planet. And high costs. Who gives a shit? You're the 4th largest economy on the fucking planet. You should have guaranteed water, and you shouldn't be telling your citizens that they can't take long showers because of a water shortage. That's fucking crazy. Invest in your infrastructure.
you weren't so dumb. If you weren't so dumb, if you weren't
go scroll
so
down and find another
dumb,
one if you want.
if you weren't good, you found 2. If you weren't so dumb, go Google the size.
You think they don't exist?
Go Google the size of the Comfort, Texas City Hall. You can't fit hundreds of people in any meeting there, you moron.
Oh, wow. Something totally unrelated to the primary point being made. Good job, dumbass.
Found one. You act like
Ben,
there's thousands that showed up.
They
did not show up and say that on the record. Are there
and
people that said
go
things on the
in,
internet?
and then the
There
people
are
can
some.
go out.
But if you,
and you know,
look at
over
how small
time,
the
you can bring 5
community
in and
is.
5 out. If you see a room that can only fit 10 people, did you know that 100 people can fit in that room if 10 go in and 10 leave?
do.
Are we? Do we forget this stuff? We don't.
Again, if you understood the size of the town, which you don't.
What does that have to do with the fact that the town voted against using ARP funds? He's not refuting the main point.
You don't care because you're literally trying to make money off of dead people.
You're the one who's
Texas.
getting kids
You
killed,
would
and I can't
know
wait for the
that
next
this is an
once-in-a-lifetime
insane thing that you're
disaster in
saying.
Texas.
You
The
moron.
next time the power grid freezes, the next time another flood happens, and dipshits like you were up here saying,
it's
could we
gotta
have ever
suck
seen it
to
coming?
make a living
But hey, you know
selling
what?
this shit
At least
online.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is out
It's
here
gotta
proposing
be a miserable
legislation
life.
to stop the Jews from putting clouds in the sky. So thank God we have you guys working hard on the problem, okay, to stop
Here's-
the weather
how do you
modification
find
program
these people?
from Bill Gates. Thank
You
God.
stay up till
Thank you.
3
Thank you
a.m.
so
and
much.
watch the internet?
Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
Okay, Brian. Let's just talk on a bigger picture about, because it's interesting to me, the whole Epstein thing, for example, I think has been fueled, the sequence of events, by what Elon Musk put on X. And he's now creating a third party. He says he is, the America Party. It's never worked before, but we've never had somebody with his money or social media firepower to drive it. So I don't think it should.
Short Stack Goblin says, Connor, you again assume this was impulsive. The firefighter thing was planned, and I'd assume this was as well. But you mean that Steven was like, I can piss off a lot of people by being unhinged on Twitter about this? Probably.
Be dismissed out of hand. How dangerous an enemy can Elon Musk turn out to be for Donald Trump.
And I don't care about that. Okay, I'm going to give you a summary. And then, to be honest, even though it's a little early, I might wrap just because. Oh, no, I can't wrap. I literally can't wrap. I have to hang out. I have to find additional content. Fudge. Okay. Let me think about what we're doing. Let me think about the game plan. Let me do the wrap real quick, okay? So in reference to that content, I think Steven is being unhinged. I think he's being a bit of a psychopath. I think it's funny that he's being a psychopath. However, the main thing that was funny was the NordVPN discount code while he's being a total asshole on the internet. I do think that he does deserve the heat that he's getting, but I think he also knows what he's doing. I think that I have a 90% DGG, like where they're like, hey, this is funny in chat, whereas 10% of them are like, no, this is pretty messed up, actually. And so that's what I would say. I'm not losing sleep over it. I do understand it's a joke. I do think it's bad optics. I do think that it endangers some of his relationships with organizations like Pang Burn and Un-F America. That being said, he has given me the gift of content, and so who am I to complain? So yeah, so there we go. End of rant. I'm going to engage with chat now. Bye.